Question number 15. If you go for it and give me the right answer, you win £1 million.
A tale of deception, greed, and public disgrace. This story delves into one of the most infamous scandals in the history of television game shows. Charles Ingram's shocking rise and fall on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. This narrative unveils the drama, intrigue, and courtroom battles that followed. In the early 2000s, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire captivated millions as contestants vied for a life-changing £1 million prize. Among them was Charles Ingram, a former Army major whose improbable success on the show turned into a national scandal. With the help of his wife Diana and fellow contestant Tecwen Whittock, Ingram orchestrated a scheme using coded coughs to cheat his way to the jackpot.
I think it was Holbein. Holbein.
£500,000. You no longer have that.
What began as an ambitious pursuit of wealth became one of the most infamous cheating scandals in television history, exposing greed, deception, and the harsh reality of public scrutiny. This is the story of Charles Ingram's rise and fall. Chapter 1. A Dream Turned Sour. Charles Ingram was an ordinary man with an extraordinary ambition. A former Army major with a stable but unremarkable career, he craved something more: fame, fortune, and recognition. When Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, a game show sensation in the early 2000s, became a nationwide obsession, Ingram saw his opportunity.
Let's see. Let's check the right order first and foremost. In the right order, Death on the Nile. Who was fastest? Charles Ingram in 3.97.
Ingram wasn't the first in his family to try his luck. His wife Diana and brother-in-law Adrian Pollock had both appeared on the show previously, though they hadn't won much. Together, they hatched a plan to maximize their chances. Diana was determined that Charles would achieve what she and Adrian could not: winning the £1 million prize. Charles's demeanor was not one of a typical quiz champion. Known for his indecisive nature and occasional lack of general knowledge, his close friends doubted he could even reach the £32,000 mark. Yet, Diana's unwavering belief in him, coupled with her own competitive drive, spurred Charles to dive into preparation. The family's plan wasn't solely based on studying trivia. The Ingrams allegedly analyzed past episodes for patterns, loopholes, and ways to manipulate the system. They believed their combined efforts and sheer determination could crack the code to success. Little did they realize that their ambition would lead to one of the most infamous scandals in television history, a tale of greed and deception that would haunt them forever. The Ingrams were no strangers to strategy. Diana and Adrian had carefully studied the format of the show, memorizing patterns and questions and focusing on subjects that often appeared. Adrian even employed practice quizzes and trivia research to improve their chances. With this foundation, Diana believed they could create a foolproof plan for Charles to succeed where they had failed. Charles himself was skeptical. Though he was willing to prepare, he lacked the confidence of his wife and brother-in-law. However, Diana's determination and her belief in their shared vision pushed him forward. What neither of them realized was how their plan, while seemingly clever, would unravel under the scrutiny of millions. Chapter 2. Suspicion in the Air. The fateful episode was filmed on September 9th and 10th, 2001. From the outset, Charles Ingram's performance seemed unusual. In the early rounds, he struggled with simple questions, making erratic choices, and second-guessing himself. However, as the stakes rose, so did his confidence and accuracy. What puzzled producers and the live audience alike was how Ingram's instincts shifted dramatically as he progressed. He began selecting correct answers seemingly out of thin air. Observant members of the crew noted a peculiar pattern.
And she won £32,000. You just won £64,000.
Every time Ingram hesitated, a faint cough would emerge from the audience. Tecwen Whittock, a fellow contestant in the fastest finger first row, played a critical role in the scheme. Whittock, Diana, and Charles had devised a system where Tecwen would signal the correct answers by coughing at key moments. Though crude, the method was surprisingly effective, as Ingram navigated increasingly difficult questions with uncanny precision. At one point, the host, Chris Tarrant, even commented on Charles's seemingly miraculous guesses. Tarrant joked about Ingram's lucky streak, but behind the scenes, producers began scrutinizing the strange occurrences. They noticed the peculiar frequency and timing of the coughing, raising suspicions that something was amiss.
It's got a mind like an encyclopedia, so... yeah, Northern Ireland. I'll follow his advice.
As Charles answered the £1 million question, a tricky one about American history, the tension in the studio was palpable. The answer seemed to come out of nowhere, leaving even the host stunned. While the audience applauded the new millionaire, the producers quietly flagged the episode for further investigation. The producers grew uneasy as the episode unfolded. They noticed Tecwen Whittock, seated in the fastest finger first row, coughing at suspiciously key moments. Each cough seemed to coincide with Charles selecting the correct answer after moments of visible doubt. These signs of coordination raised immediate red flags. Charles's responses became even more questionable as the difficulty of the questions increased. At one point, he seemed completely unsure of a geography question, but then confidently chose the correct answer after a pause and a series of coughs.
Final answer.
Final answer.
It's the right answer.
While the audience at home watched in admiration, the production team was already planning an investigation. Chapter 3. A scandal unfolds.
I think I've heard of a Google.
You just won $1 million!
The episode aired as planned, and Charles Ingram became an overnight sensation. However, celebrations were short-lived. ITV and Celador, the show's producers, launched an investigation after reviewing the audio recordings. The coughing signals were undeniable. The media quickly latched onto the story, dubbing Charles the coughing major. Tabloids splashed headlines accusing him of masterminding a fraudulent scheme. Public opinion turned against him and his family as their once celebrated victory was now seen as a disgraceful act of cheating. Ingram's trial at Southwark Crown Court in 2003 became a media circus. Prosecutors played the audio recordings of the episode, highlighting every suspicious cough. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental, and Whittock's frequent throat clearing made for damning evidence.
Tecwen Whittock to cough at precisely the moment that the major mentions the word Google. And the first time he mentions the word Google, cough, cough, gotcha.
The defense argued that Charles had relied on logic and intuition to answer the questions, dismissing the coughing as coincidence.
He's wrong. He saw me coughing because I was coughing, but not coughing as a signal.
However, the prosecution presented testimony from the production team and other contestants, painting a damning picture of a calculated conspiracy. Ultimately, Charles, Diana, and Tecwen Whittock were found guilty. Though they avoided prison, their reputations were ruined and their winnings were revoked. The trial had not only exposed their scheme, but also left their lives in shambles. Ingram's defense team argued that the coughing was unrelated and purely coincidental. They claimed Charles had simply relied on intuition and logic to answer the questions. Despite their efforts, the jury was unconvinced, as the pattern of collusion became increasingly evident. The Ingrams and Tecwen Whittock were convicted of procuring the execution of a valuable security by deception. Although they avoided prison, the court imposed heavy fines, and their winnings were revoked. For Charles and Diana, their once promising future had crumbled into public humiliation and financial ruin. Chapter 4. The Legacy of Deceit. The Charles Ingram saga left an indelible mark on British pop culture. Years later, his story would inspire documentaries, books, and even a stage play titled Quiz, which re-examined the scandal from multiple angles. While some speculated about the possibility of a conspiracy against the Ingrams, the evidence remained damning. The Ingrams struggled to rebuild their lives in the aftermath of the scandal. They faced bankruptcy multiple times and became social pariahs. Despite their pleas of innocence, the public largely dismissed their claims, viewing them as the embodiment of greed and dishonesty. Interestingly, the case also highlighted the vulnerabilities of popular game shows. In response, producers of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and other shows implemented stricter security measures to prevent cheating. The scandal served as a wake-up call for the industry, changing how such programs were produced and monitored. Even years later, the Ingrams maintained their innocence, giving interviews and writing books about their experience. Their claims of unfair treatment and a conspiracy against them have been met with skepticism. But their story remains a compelling study of human ambition and its consequences. Despite the disgrace, the Ingrams became unlikely anti-heroes for some. Their story of ambition, deception, and downfall fascinated the public and sparked debates about morality and human nature. While many condemned their actions, others saw them as flawed individuals caught in a moment of poor judgment. In the end, the Charles Ingram scandal remains a cautionary tale, a reminder of how the pursuit of wealth and fame can lead to one's undoing. The Ingrams' desire to outwit the system cost them not only their winnings, but also their integrity, proving that shortcuts to success often come at a steep price. The Charles Ingram scandal serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of how the pursuit of wealth and fame can lead to one's undoing. The Ingrams' attempt to outwit the system may have temporarily fooled millions, but it ultimately cost them their reputation, their fortune, and their place in public life.